Last month, I made just over $3,700 reselling, and just over 3,000 of that came from Whatnot alone. That part genuinely shocked me. My other platforms, eBay, Poshmark, and Depop, had a solid month too, but honestly, I've done better on them before. What really changed everything was the pivot that I made to live selling. And that's exactly what I want to break down in the beginning of this video, while also still sharing what sold across the other 3 platforms as always. If you're new to my channel, I'm primarily a clothing seller across eBay, Poshmark, and Depop, but on Whatnot, I only do clothing shows once a month, and then I actually sell rings on Whatnot 3 days a week. If you enjoy reselling content, I typically post a video twice a month. One of them is always an update video like this, where I catch you up on the progress that I've made since I started reselling just over a year ago. Feel free to subscribe if this fits your vibe. That totally rhymed. I love going back and looking at my metrics from my Whatnot shows, and I know most of y'all are also fascinated by numbers. So here's what January looked like for me in a nutshell on Whatnot. Okay, so my earnings, I took home $3,036.98 on Whatnot over 13 shows, totaling 34 hours and 39 minutes being live, and that was 584 orders. And my average order value was $6.53. I know, that sounds incredibly low, doesn't it? Like, sometimes I'll sell something for $1 and sometimes I sell things for $30. But I guess my average is only $6.53, but I still was able to bring home $3,000. I had an average of 12 buyers per show. I also gained 564 followers, and the highest amount of concurrent viewers I had, so the amount of people I had, like the most amount of people I had in my show at one time, was 45, which was pretty cool, even though that definitely didn't last. Now, I had one absolutely outstanding show out of those 13 that definitely helped to skew my metrics. It was January 26th. I was only live for 4 hours, and I did over $1,000 in gross sales, 800 of which I was able to take home. That was my earnings, was about $800. So I made $200 per hour in this show while being live. You'll notice in my screenshot here that I took advantage of giveaways, which was obviously absolutely worth it despite spending over $40 on them. And my average order value was slightly higher than usual because I sold several higher end, higher value rings, and I did have some bidding wars. There were 153 orders total. Or I should say 153 items sold. And then here are my stream metrics, where you'll see I was live for just over 4 hours, but I had 28 buyers. 21 of them were first time buyers, which I think is really cool, and a max of 39 concurrent viewers, and 556 people popped into my show over the duration of it. So I'm truly not sure what the heck happened during that show that made it such a banger, but I did make a small change around this time that has significantly increased my orders and earnings each show since then, and that is surprisingly utilizing giveaways. So being not just a seller on Whatnot, but also a buyer, an observer, and just a sponge, I'm trying to absorb as much information as I can. I noticed that a lot of sellers use giveaways as a way to just keep people in their show, which totally makes sense. But something about that did not feel right to me for my style of selling, because I don't want people to stay in my shows just because I'm giving something away for free. I want people to stay in my shows because they enjoy my shows and because they're interested in what I'm selling. So initially, I avoided giveaways like the plague. And this is where I bring back the word pivot. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I pivoted to Whatnot, and that was actually as a way to supplement my income for the other platforms. And I'm glad I did, because Whatnot felt right for me right away. So I decided to focus my energy on how I can make this a significant part of my income. In just a couple of months, it quickly switched to being my main source of income. It makes up literally more than 80% of my income now. So I decided to use this same philosophy to continue to increase my sales on Whatnot, because why not? I had already doubled my goal, which if you guys don't know, or if you haven't been here, My goal by the end of 2025 was to consistently make $1,000 a month. And I actually doubled that goal in the last 2 months of the year. And I wasn't expecting that at all. I wasn't trying to like underestimate my goal. I just found Whatnot and discovered that I can make a lot more money than I thought I could. So I decided, let's work towards doubling that again, because why not? Who doesn't want to make more money, right? I had been asked by a few viewers literally during my shows about giveaways. Like, will I ever run a giveaway? Why don't I run giveaways? And my answer was always, I'm scared of giveaways. I don't want them to cost me money. I don't want givey goblins. I don't want people leaving me a bad review because they didn't like the free item that they got. But if I could find a way to significantly increase my sales, then wouldn't that risk be worth it? I decided to say yes to that question, and I spent about a week trying to figure out how I'm going to use giveaways to increase my sales. And the idea that I came up with was, I'm going to do a buyer's giveaway every 10 sales during my show. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Whatnot, a buyer's giveaway is a giveaway that only people that buy during that show can enter. So I did that. On January 12th, I set up my show for a bunch of buyer's giveaways with the intention of running one every 10 sales. I was going to consistently remind my viewers, hey, I'm gonna run a buyer's giveaway X amount of sales from now. But the funny thing is, I totally messed up. So I don't have a lot of experience running giveaways, or I didn't at the time. And I accidentally made them all follower-only giveaways and not buyer-only giveaways. So that meant that anybody that followed me could enter the giveaway, whether they bought something from me in that show or not. And instead of just fixing that mid-show, which would have put me out of commission for, probably 5 to 10 minutes, which would have been really annoying to my viewers, I decided to just leave it like that. And I even several times during that show said, hey guys, this is the last time I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make them buyers giveaways from here on out, so get them while you can, that kind of thing. Well, about 3/4 of the way through my show, I realized that the universe was trying to send me a sign, because by then I had surpassed my sales record in one show already. By the end of that show, I had 81 orders and took home $380 while only having spent $12 on giveaways. That more than doubled my last sales record for earnings and number of orders. I spent the rest of that evening packing my 81 orders and laughing at myself and feeling so grateful that I made that mistake, because in doing so, I learned exactly how I was going to increase my sales. I was going to run followers giveaways every 10 sales, and I was going to run one single buyer's giveaway at the end of every show. Now, I've been doing this every show since, and I now make an average of $280 per show, being live an average of just under 3 hours. So that is my update for y'all on how Whatnot is going. And I wish I could do a what sold for my Whatnot shows, but due to the nature of live selling, that is impossible. So if you want to see what I sell on Whatnot, there is a link tree in my description always. And there are 3 Whatnot links in there. One of them just takes you directly to my page. One of them gives you $15 free to spend on the app if you don't have an account already. And the third one is for sellers. If you are considering selling on Whatnot and you want to make $3,000 a month on Whatnot as well, feel free to sign up using my link. It'll give you $150 match in your first week, but do not sign up until you are ready, because if you don't do any sales in that first week, you completely lose out on that opportunity, like I did. And I will get a commission if you make a sale. And this is not sponsored. If you are a Whatnot seller, you also get this referral link. So it's not sponsored, it's just a link that everybody gets. Anyways, let's get into what's sold on eBay, Poshmark, and Depop. And if you're curious to know, I made about $675 across all 3 platforms, which is a pretty solid month for me on those platforms. My maximum amount I've made in a month on those platforms is like $1,000, and that was in May of 2025. And this was at a time when I was like really hustling and focusing on that. But obviously it makes more sense for me to focus on Whatnot because, well, I just proved to you why. I'm definitely going to start with eBay because that is where I sell the majority of my clothing, but I do have to talk about the eBay promoted listing situation. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I think it was like January 13th, they started with their new promoted listings policy, which in a nutshell basically means that if you promote your listings, you're gonna get charged a promoted listings fee, whether your item gets found via the promotion or not. And so unfortunately, I was able to, immediately prove that that is basically what's happening. Every single thing I sold since the middle of January that was promoted was sold via promoted listings. So I paid promoted listings fee. However, I did sell several things not on promoted listing, and those were things that I had newly listed and have only been listed for 30 days. So this is an idea that I stole from Justin Resells. He is an absolutely excellent YouTuber. If you guys don't follow him already, which you probably already do unless you live under a rock, definitely give him a follow. He had this really great video on his idea for what he's gonna do with the promoted listings policy, how he's gonna change how he does it, and I'm copying exactly what he's doing. I am not promoting my item until the item has been on the platform for 30 days, and then I will go ahead and promote it. But I want to give every single one of my items a chance to be found without using the promoted listing. And I'm glad that I did it that way because, again, several of my items sold within the 30 days and I did not have to use the promoted listings fee for that. So had to talk about that first. But without further ado, let's get started on what sold on eBay. So the first thing were these New Balance 379 shoes. They said like sour something on the side, and they were in really, really good condition. I believe my mom found these in the middle of the summer at a thrift store for $5 and they sold for $29. So they took kind of a while to flip, but I still think it was worth picking up because that was a pretty decent return on investment. Next up was this American Eagle peasant blouse. This was a style-based pickup. American Eagle is definitely not like a highly desired brand. It's just a mall brand. But because this was a peasant blouse, which is definitely very trendy and very in, I made sure to list it to get it to the right buyer, and it flipped in less than a month for $21.24. These Jag jeans I've had for a year, and I thrifted them for $7 and they sold for $12. So I want to share, some of the bummy crap sales, and this was one of them. Back a year ago when I was researching these, Jag jeans did have a pretty decent sell-through rate. I'm assuming that maybe they don't anymore, but I would love to know y'all's opinion on Jag jeans. I don't feel like I hear a lot about it anymore, but I used to. So definitely in the comments, if you know anything about Jag jeans, feel free to comment because you guys really helped me out with this. My last What Sold video, I had a couple of items that I was like, I don't know why this didn't sell well, or I know why this did sell well. And some people in the comments were like, oh, this sells well because of this, and then find this version of that. And it was very, very helpful, especially with the Robert Graham stuff. So I appreciate that. All right, next up is another style-based find. This is Urban Outfitters, which is not a brand that anyone really looks for. But this was a Swiss dots dress, like a little mini dress with the Swiss dots. I found this in the bins in September, and just so you guys know, I didn't say this earlier, but when I find something in the bins, it's like $1.30, somewhere between like $1.30 and $1.40. So just really, really cheap. And that sold for $16, and I was really proud to sell this in the middle of winter. Again, a style-based pickup, when you have something like that that's like a non-desirable brand, you have to make sure that you have the right title and the right keywords in there. So I was really proud of that one. The next item is a bolo, and this is really interesting, and I'm really glad that this is in this video so that I can teach you guys something. The brand is called Alpaca, A-L-P-A-K-A, and this particular bag is called a Bravo Sling Max V2, and just Alpaca in general is a brand you want to look out for. New or used, these things have a over 300% sell-through rate on them on eBay. At least they did when I looked this up. And so where did I get this? This one was new with tags. I got this from a Whatnot liquidator, and they were selling, you could buy, I think it was like a bundle of 4 bags for like 20 something dollars. I have no idea. And when I looked up the sell-through rate on it, I was like, could I go wrong? Like, even if they sent some of the smaller bags that weren't, very expensive, I still would make a lot of money on them. So in total, that bag cost me $6 and it flipped in 2 days for $90. So that was a huge chunk of my income for the month. And that is not the only one that sold. I sold one on Poshmark as well, but you will see that when I do the Poshmark section. So definitely be on the lookout for alpaca. They are like men's bags. They're ripstop. They're super, super high quality. They're weather resistant. Like, just be on the lookout for sure. Another bolo find was this FootJoy golf polo. You guys know I love to sell golf polos. I don't know why. We have a lot of golf courses here in North Carolina, and so I see a lot of golf stuff, so I sell a lot of golf stuff. But FootJoy does really well if you have a cool design, and this one obviously was. It had dolphins all over it. Dolphins are cool, okay? So this one I found at the bin, so like $1.35. And in November, but I listed it and flipped it in a week for $17. And then I found another one literally like 2 minutes later in the same bin. This one was a yellow gray like floral shirt. For some reason, this one sold for much more. So same thing, $1.35, and it sold for $30. I don't know why the dolphin one sold for less. I maybe accepted an offer on it and maybe should have waited a little bit longer, but I tend to accept any reasonable offer, especially when I find something for just over $1. Like, why not? $17, yes, let's go. All right, this NYX brand, which is an underwear brand, this was a robe, like a waffle knit robe. Found it in the bins in October, so $1.40. And it took a month to sell for $15, not bad. This next one I also found at the bins in November. This is a Bloom Chic brand floral midi dress. I do believe that Bloom Chic is a plus size brand. If you guys find any plus size clothes in good condition that are trendy, pick them up, because we don't have enough plus size brands that make decent clothes. So this dress sold within a week for $21 in the middle of winter. I used an AI photo for this one because I had a hard time getting a decent picture of the dress, but I still did pictures of the dress in the rest of the listing, obviously. All right, next up, another mall brand. This is an Abercrombie & Fitch cropped tank. I found this in the bins in October. I actually bought this for myself and it didn't like the way it fit on me, so I flipped it for $25. I think that one only took a month to flip. These Adidas ZX Flux Decon running shoes with the Northern Lights theme, I've had since November 2024, and I bought them at a thrift store, and I paid up for these, you guys. I paid $16 for these because the sell-through rate was so good. These were selling for like $70-something. And I ended up having to sell them for 50% off for $17. So I did not make any money on these, but I'm glad that I kind of got most of my money back. This Express 1MX, I don't know what that means, button-up shirt I got on a Facebook Marketplace bulk buy for 43 cents and flipped that for $17. I've had that one since summer, so that was a really slow flip. I would not pick that up, but it was 43 cents, so I'm happy with that. This one I was really proud of. This is a Christopher Banks, like, again, not a popular brand. This is like a like department store brand, denim maxi skirt, and I bought this from a seller on Whatnot who was getting rid of a lot of stuff. I mentioned this in my last What Sold video. It was someone that like owned a thrift store and they just wanted to kind of get rid of everything, so they were selling everything for $1. So I paid $1.75 for this, and it flipped in a couple of weeks for $20. You guys are gonna be so proud of me on this next one if you've been following me at all, like since the beginning. These Piccolinos Granada clogs I bought from Vista Auction, and this is my last Vista Auction item to get rid of. If you don't know, when I first started my Whatnot journey, I bought a bunch of stupid stuff on this website called Vista Auction. It's 45-minute drive from my house to pick up these items. Everything costs way more than they should have. I paid up for a lot of things. It was dumb. It was the beginning of my reselling journey and I did not know what I was doing, but this is the last item from that freaking haul. So I'm so happy to have gotten rid of them. However, I did pay $38 for these and I sold them for $40. So with fees and everything, I actually did lose money on these, but I'm glad that, again, I made most of my money back from that. Here's another one that wasn't like the best flip ever at all, but I'm glad that I put it in here. This was a New With Tags Jansen brand, which is a QVC brand, swim overskirt. So it's not like a skirt, it's just something you put over the bottom part of your swimsuit. This one is part of the bundles that I bought from Daily Refinements. On Whatnot, they had like QVC bundles going, and I was like, why not? I'll buy a couple and see what happens. So this one cost me $3.58, and I sold it for $10. And I've actually sold quite a bit of items from those bundles, so I don't think that they were a bad pickup at all. This next one is another bolo. This is a vintage Y2K Abercrombie and Fitch polo, but this one has the embroidered big moose on the chest area. If you get a big moose, that is vintage and that is highly sought after. This was found at the bin, so $1.35, and I flipped it for $25. I think that one only took a month to flip because I don't even think that I had to relist this one. So no promoted listing fee and flipped quickly. So happy with that. All right, next up we have this new without tags. This was a Ripple Junction brand Kill Bill hoodie. And again, not something I would normally pick up, but this was from a mystery box that I bought on Whatnot from a friend of mine. She was in a raid train and she was doing reseller bundle boxes. If you guys don't know what a raid train is on Whatnot, it's when you have like a scheduled slot of time that you are supposed to be on, and the person before you raids into you, and then you raid into the next person, and then so on and so on. So you basically just carry the same viewers throughout X amount of shows throughout the entire day. I joined in during this show because it was a friend of mine, and this, I would say, probably cost just under $5, if not less, and I flipped it for $25 within a week. Kill Bill is getting like a, I don't know, it's like repopularized again. I play Fortnite every single night, and there was recently like a Kill Bill themed thing going on with Fortnite. So I feel like if you guys want to know what's trending, not even like clothing wise, just pop culture, just play Fortnite, because Fortnite always is doing whatever is trending in pop culture. All right, next up is another bolo. This is a brand that most people are familiar with, but I feel like not enough people are. This brand is called Vuori, and it's basically like a higher class, better quality Lululemon. This was just a men's hoodie, just like a super basic men's waffle knit hoodie. I've had this since September from the bins for, you know, $1.30, and I flipped it for $50. I actually had it listed for $80, and I accepted an offer for $50 because hello, that's really a great flip. You guys are gonna love this one. The next one is a Nike Dry Fit Zip Up. Nothing really special about the item itself, but I sourced it from Becky Park's Whatnot show back in the summer for $4.70, and I flipped it for $17. If you guys are not following Becky Park on YouTube, go subscribe to her channel. You will not be disappointed. And lastly for eBay were these Polo Ralph Lauren duck boots. These were men's, and I had super high expectations for these. I was really pumped that I picked these up because like duck boots are super trendy, and I guess I was wrong because I've had these since December 2024. So I've had them for over a year, and I bought them for $5, and they finally flipped for $21. So I don't like when things sit for longer than like 4 months. So a year is just like irritating to me. All right, let's move on to my Poshmark sales. The first one is one of my favorite things to pick up. This is a Banana Republic merino wool sweater. I love picking up merino wool in the fall and winter months. It sells very, very quickly for me every time. I actually wasn't sure about this color because it's a very, very vibrant color, not a neutral, you know. This one did have like a scalloped hem and everything, and the most important part of this one was that there were no holes. Almost every time I pick up merino wool, there are holes. This one had no holes, so I guess that's probably why it flipped well. But that took a couple weeks to flip from the bins, so $1.35 to $20. Again, from Becky Park's Whatnot show in that summer, so $4.70 on this one. I sold this Orvis brand polo, kind of like a color block situation, and that one sold for $17. Here we go again on the alpaca bags. Bolo, you guys, I'm gonna say it again, alpaca. This one was the alpaca flow satchel, again from that Whatnot liquidator, cost me $6. Flipped it within a couple of days for $80. 80. Bolo, bolo, bolo. Y'all are gonna love this one too. Okay, if you saw my last video, I used this pair of jeans as an example for how I batch list and how I list things in 5 minutes. This is a pair of Judy Blue flare jeans, and they literally flipped within a few days. I found these at the bins for $1.35 back in November, and they sold for 20 bucks on Poshmark. I sold 2 pairs of Anthropologie Pilcrow jeans that I got in February, so almost a full year ago. $4 each, and one of them sold for $19, and the other one sold for $29. That's another brand where it sits for a while and sells for really good, but I don't like how long it sits for. This next one was a super, super fast flip. So this is another bolo. This is an Anthropologie HWR. It was a hand knit patchwork open front cardigan. I got this from a Whatnot friend as well, who is liquidating because she's moving. So she sells on Whatnot, but she's trying to get rid of all her stuff so she doesn't have to move it all with her. So I think I have like $1.58 for this, and it flipped in 1 day for $30. And I actually listed it for $50, and someone offered me like $20 the first day, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait and see if someone gives me a better offer, and they did. And I was like, I'll accept $30. That sounds great. And then another one is like another one I have a question about, which is these Spanx jeans. Spanx was a bolo at one point, and I don't think it is anymore. I got these in April of last year for $5, and they did sell for $35, which is a really nice return on investment. But that is a long time for these to sit in my inventory. All right, that was it for Poshmark. I did sell some stuff on Depop, you guys. I feel like I'm selling like more and more stuff on Depop, and I'm really proud of myself. So the first thing was actually a bundle. Someone bought 2 Joffrey Bean sweater vests from me that I picked up a long time ago, over a year ago. I paid, I think, $2 each for them, and I sold them for $8 each. So boring flip, but because it was sold on Depop, I made more than I would have if I sold it on the other platforms, because there's no seller fees on Depop, if you did not know that. Next up is these 7 for All Mankind Austin jeans. Now, the funny thing about these is I had a really hard time trying to figure out whether these were for men or women. I had done so much research on these, could not figure it out. They look like men's jeans. Google swears up and down that they are women's jeans. So whatever. I bought them a year ago for $6, and they sold for $20. This one is a bolo in a quick flip. My mom, if you guys don't know, is my thrifting buddy and my sourcing buddy. So she helps me out with certain things, and she is my ties and blazers and hard goods lady. So she always looks at the ties in the bins, and there's always a bin of ties at the bins that we go to. So not only did we find an Hermes, like legitimate, authentic Hermes tie that is still not sold, but we're waiting for the right buyer. It's got a lot of interest. But we also found this tie, which was a Donald Trump signature collection tie. And I was really proud of my listing photo in this one. I feel like it looks super profesh. And so we found that in the bins, $1.35. And sold that for $19, and that flipped within a week. So next up were these Madewell Curvy 90s straight jeans. I've had them for a year. Bought them for $5 at the thrift, and they sold for $23. This one I am so, so proud of. This is a Gap tiered linen maxi skirt, and another brand that's like it's not a big deal brand, but because I was able to title it correctly and put the right keywords in the descriptions, this flipped from the bins in November, $1.35. This flipped in a day after I listed it for $23. So exciting. And the very last item on here was also from that Whatnot friend that was doing the reseller bundle boxes. This was a new with tags Urban Outfitters mini skirt with a very, very Y2K low rise theme to it. This was so easy to sell. Again, even though it's Urban Outfitters, but I was like stressing the like Y2K trendy aesthetic thing in the description. And so that flipped in a day for $16. And that is it. That is literally everything I sold in January, minus like, there's a couple things that I put on eBay for auction that aren't even worth talking about that were like damaged. And I was just trying to see if I could get my money back for them, which I did. Some sold for like $5, but they were just not very good items. But you guys are mostly looking for the good stuff that sells. So I always want to share, you know, the wins, and I obviously will always throw in things that weren't wins as well. I will always have duds. Like I probably will always have things that don't sell for well, because reselling is like this ever changing thing. It's a never ending learning experience, and nobody is perfect at it. So anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this update and what sold video. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy this type of content and you want to see how I continue to progress on this very wild and unexpected journey that I'm having. I will see you in the next one. Bye.